Ladies and gentlemen, Brendon Burchard was just 19 years old when he found himself in a deep state of misery. It was a time in his life when he felt lost, disconnected, and uncertain about his future. Like many young people, he had dreams, aspirations, and hopes for the future, but he found himself weighed down by circumstances that made those dreams seem distant and unattainable. His struggles were not just external, they were internal battles that left him feeling stuck in a cycle of sadness and self-doubt. At that age, he had just gone through a painful breakup with his high school sweetheart, an experience that left him heartbroken and directionless. The emotional toll of losing someone he deeply cared about was overwhelming, and he found himself slipping into a state of depression. The breakup was not just about the end of a relationship, it was about the shattering of a future he had envisioned with someone he loved. When a young person experiences their first major heartbreak, it can feel like the world is caving in, and for Brendon, this emotional pain began to consume him. As the weight of his sadness grew heavier, he started to withdraw from the things that once brought him joy. He felt as though he had no control over his life, no sense of purpose, and no clear path forward. His academic performance suffered, his relationships with family and friends became strained, and his overall outlook on life darkened. He struggled to find motivation and meaning in his daily routine. In an attempt to escape his pain, he started engaging in reckless behavior, making poor choices that only deepened his feelings of misery. He would stay up late at night, consumed by negative thoughts, questioning whether he would ever find happiness again. The loneliness he felt was not just about being physically alone, it was an internal emptiness that made him question his worth and his place in the world. During this time, he also felt immense pressure about his future. Like many young people, he was expected to figure out what he wanted to do with his life, choose a career path, and make decisions that would shape the rest of his adulthood. However, he felt completely unprepared for these choices. The future seemed daunting, and the pressure to have it all figured out only made him feel more overwhelmed. Every time he thought about his goals or his ambitions, doubt would creep in, whispering that he was not good enough, that he would never succeed, and that his life was destined for mediocrity. This mindset became a trap, keeping him stuck in a cycle of negativity. The more he doubted himself, the more he avoided taking action, and the more he avoided taking action, the worse he felt about himself. It was a downward spiral that seemed impossible to escape. His misery was compounded by a lack of guidance. At that time in his life, he did not have a mentor or a role model to help him navigate his struggles. He felt isolated, believing that no one truly understood what he was going through. Even though he was surrounded by people, he felt alone in his pain. He did not know how to ask for help, and he did not believe that anyone would be able to help him, even if he did. The world around him continued moving forward while he felt stuck in place. He watched his peers pursue their goals, build relationships, and find success, which only deepened his sense of inadequacy. He began to compare himself to others, convincing himself that he was falling behind, that he was not good enough, and that he would never achieve the kind of success he saw in those around him. This period of his life was defined by a sense of hopelessness. He questioned whether his life had any meaning, whether his struggles had any purpose, and whether he would ever find his way out of the darkness. He lacked the tools and the mindset needed to break free from his suffering, and each day felt like a battle he was losing. However, even in his misery, there was a small part of him that still longed for something better. Deep down, he wanted to believe that his life could change, that he could find happiness again, and that his pain was not permanent. Though he did not yet know how to make that change happen, the desire for something more remained within him, waiting to be awakened. Brendon Burchard's life took a dramatic turn when he experienced a near-fatal car accident, an event that forced him to confront the fragility of life and question everything he had been going through. It was a moment that would not only shake him to his core, but also set him on a path of deep reflection and transformation. Before the accident, he had been struggling with feelings of worthlessness, heartbreak, and uncertainty about his future. His mind had been consumed by negativity, and he had no clear direction in life. But in just a few terrifying moments, everything changed. The accident happened while he was in the Dominican Republic, where he had taken a summer job as a tour guide in an attempt to escape his pain and reset his life. The trip was supposed to be a break, a chance to get away from the struggles he had been facing back home, but instead it became the most defining experience of his life. He found himself In a car, speeding down a dark road late at night, the wind rushing past as the vehicle moved recklessly forward. In an instant, the car lost control. Tires screeched, metal twisted, and the world around him spun into chaos. The vehicle crashed, flipping violently, and when everything finally stopped, he was left in shock, his body bruised and bleeding, his mind racing with fear and disbelief. As he lay there staring up at the night sky, a rush of emotions flooded through him. He could feel the blood on his skin, the pain in his body, and the weight of what had just happened. He realized how close he had come to losing everything. In that moment of near death, three powerful questions emerged in his mind. Questions that would forever shape the way he viewed his life. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? These were not just passing thoughts, they were urgent, soul-searching inquiries that demanded immediate answers. When he asked himself, did I live? He had to face the truth. He'd been merely existing, not truly living. He had spent so much time trapped in sadness and regret, dwelling on his past and avoiding his future. He had not been taking risks, pursuing his passions, or embracing life with enthusiasm. Instead, he had let fear and pain dictate his actions, preventing him from experiencing the joy and excitement that life had to offer. In that moment, he realized that he did not want to live passively anymore. He wanted to take control of his life, to embrace new experiences, and to make every moment count. The second question, did I love? Forced him to reflect on the relationships he had in his life. Had he shown love to those who mattered most to him? Had he expressed gratitude, kindness, and appreciation to his family, friends, and the people who had supported him? The painful breakup that had led him into misery had also made him close himself off emotionally, fearing further heartbreak and disappointment. But as he lay there, he realized that love was not just about romantic relationships. It was about the way he treated others, the way he connected with people, and the way he allowed himself to give and receive love without fear. He recognized that he had been holding back, afraid to open himself up again, and that needed to change. The final question, did I matter, struck him the hardest. Up until that point, he had not given much thought to his purpose or the impact he could have on the world. He had been consumed by his own struggles, failing to recognize that his life had meaning beyond his personal pain. He wondered if he had done anything that truly mattered, if he had made a difference in anyone's life, if he had contributed something valuable to the world. The realization that he had not been living with purpose hit him deeply. He knew in that moment that he did not want to leave this world without making an impact. He wanted to matter. He wanted to inspire. He wanted his life to stand for something greater than himself. Brendon Burchard's near-death experience was a wake-up call that forced him to rethink everything about his life. The moment he walked away from that crash, he knew he had been given a second chance and he was not going to waste it. The pain, the heartbreak, the self-doubt, and the misery he had been drowning in suddenly seemed like obstacles he could overcome, rather than chains holding him back. He realized that his struggles did not have to define him. Instead, they could become the foundation for something greater. His suffering could serve a purpose. Rather than continuing down a path of despair, he made a decision. He was going to take control of his life and turn his pain into purpose. That commitment did not mean everything changed overnight. He still had to deal with the emotions, the doubts, and the habits that had kept him stuck for so long. But what had changed was his mindset. He was no longer willing to let life happen to him. He was going to make life happen for him. He started by seeking out knowledge. He knew he needed to shift his perspective, so he dove into books on personal development, psychology, and success. He became obsessed with learning from people who had overcome great obstacles and turned their lives around. He wanted to understand what separated those who lived extraordinary lives from those who remained trapped in suffering. He started applying what he learned. Instead of allowing his emotions to dictate his actions, he focused on developing habits that would bring him closer to the life he wanted. He worked on his mindset, training himself to replace negative thoughts with empowering ones. When self-doubt crept in, he reminded himself of the second chance he had been given. He refused to waste it. He began setting goals for himself, small at first, then bigger as he built confidence. Every time he accomplished something, no matter how small, it reinforced his belief that he had control over his life. One of the most significant changes he made was in how he treated people. The question, did I love, had forced him to reflect on how he had been closing himself off emotionally. He knew he needed to change that. He became more intentional about expressing gratitude, kindness, and appreciation to those around him. He rebuilt relationships that had been strained, reached out to those he had lost touch with, and made an effort to connect more deeply with people. He realized that life was not just about personal success, it was about the impact he could have on others. As he continued growing, he felt a new sense of purpose emerging. He no longer wanted to simply improve his own life, he wanted to help others do the same. He knew what it felt like to be lost, hopeless, and unsure of the future, and he wanted to be a source of inspiration for people going through similar struggles. He started writing, sharing his insights and experiences. He found that his words resonated with others, and that gave him even more motivation to keep going. Over time, his desire to help others became his mission. He pursued higher education, not just to gain knowledge, but to equip himself with the skills needed to teach, inspire, and lead. He studied psychology, motivation, and high performance, always looking for ways to apply what he learned to help people change their lives. He began speaking publicly, sharing his story and the lessons he had learned. At first, he was nervous. He doubted whether anyone would care about what he had to say. But he pushed past the fear, knowing that if his words could help even one person, it would be worth it. His message was simple but powerful. No matter where you are in life, no matter how much pain you have endured, you have the ability to turn it into something meaningful. He encouraged people to take control of their lives, to stop waiting for the right moment, and to start making changes now. He shared the 3 questions that had transformed his life. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? And showed people how to use them as a guide for making decisions and finding purpose. His passion for helping others grew stronger with every person he inspired. The more he shared his message, the more he saw the impact it had. People reached out to tell him that his words had given them hope, that they had started making changes in their own lives because of what he had shared. That feedback fueled him. It proved to him that his pain had not been for nothing. Everything he had gone through, every struggle he had faced, had led him to this moment.